Hello, friends. This is Pat from the Italian American Podcast. Every year we run the Feast of Our Lady of Sacramonte in Clifton, New Jersey. To make this authentic Italian American feast a reality, we need your financial support. This is an expensive event to run, and your annual generosity makes it come to reality. Please contribute to our GoFundMe link in bio. Thank you very, very much.
Hi, this is Brenda Vaccaro. I want you to know I think this is a great show and you better watch it. You won't be unhappy. It's great.
Hi, this is Stephen Chbosky.
This is Liz Macy.
This is Jody Scaravella, and you are listening to the Italian American Podcast.
See that you're born an Italian if you want your life to be great. See that you're born an Italiano and your life will be great.
How about some Donadell?
That's a nice.
Hey there, Paesani, and welcome back to another episode of the Italian American Podcast. I'm John Viola, along with my partner in crime, the notorious P.O.B, Patrick O'Boyle, the Italian American Wikipedia, sitting next to me here at the corner of Mulberry and Grand, in the heart of Little Italy, at the crossroads of Italian America, Red Sauce Studio. We are coming to you with another dose of Italian American heritage, history, and hilarity, and I promise you, you are going to get all of those things today. Probably heavy on the hilarity, because we have been talking for about an hour here before the show started with our guests. We have a panel of guests today, and it's all built around yesterday's official declaration of International Nonna Day in Staten Island, because I'm sure everybody out there in podcast land is well aware that Netflix has at the top of its charts an Italian-American story, and that's such an amazing accomplishment, and a lot of the people behind that Italian-American story are here today to share with us the story of Nonnas, this wonderful film that's out now on Netflix. Hopefully you're all subscribers out there. If not, and you want to see this story, good reason to join up and hear an Italian-American tale at the pinnacle of the entertainment world today. So I will go around the table and do a quick introduction of who is joining us. From my left, obviously you know my co-host. We also have a returning guest who has been one of our more popular, I'm going to say, what's the word I'm looking for?
Legend.
Legend, yeah. A legend.
I thought I was just a guest.
No, you not anymore. You are the Nonna of Red Sauce Studios now.
I don't know
Brenda
what legends
Vaccaro.
say.
You can say whatever you want at that point. That's what legends make you. You can say literally whatever you want.
Okay. Okay.
But
thank
you were here a while back when we first opened, and we did 2 episodes, I think, together, and everybody loved them, so welcome back.
Thank you very
We're
much.
very, very happy to have you. One of the stars of this film. We also have Stephen Chbosky. Did I say that right?
Yes, close enough.
No, tell me again. I'm going to get it right.
You could say Stephen Chbosky.
We also have Stephen Chbosky here, who is the director of Nonnas, and came back from the Staten Island. Everybody was in Staten Island last night, right?
Everybody it was an amazing night. Yep.
I can imagine it was. Well, thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
We have Liz Macy, who is the screenwriter behind this amazing project, and a fellow Paesan of ours, right?
That's
Paesana, with the name change, Macy. We're going to hear about that in a little bit. And at the end here, we have Jody Scaravella, who is the inspiration behind this movie, because he is the proprietor and dream maker at the Enoteca Maria on Staten Island, the actual restaurant that this entire script and project is based on. So welcome, Jody.
Thank you, John. Happy to be here.
I'm very happy to have all you guys here.
Thank you.
Staten Island's near and dear to our heart. We do a lot of work out there in Staten, Italy, 40-some-odd%
Yep.
Italian-American,
Yep.
so what a great place to set a movie like this. I guess the first question goes to you guys as a team. How did this project start?
Oh, well, it started with this incredible human being sitting next to me, Joe, who had this incredible vision and dream, and I think literally the biggest heart in any human being I've ever met. And he actualized it. And then Joe has a very dear friend, Jack Turner, who is one of the producers, that said, you know what? I'm going to protect your rights, and I'm going to get this to the right people in Hollywood. And those people happen to be Madison Wells Media. And then I just had this incredible opportunity to pitch on this story. And then I was lucky enough to get it. And then I dragged my husband, although it wasn't dragging.
There's no dragging. No, I love the story. I thought what Joe did was incredible with the ladies, and I love the story. And I knew it would be fun. And knowing, my wife, she's from New Jersey, very proud, very big Italian American family, and I knew all of the nuance and the kind of love story. Or the love songs she would write for her mother and for her aunts and everything else to pay tribute to them. So I was all in, But it's amazing. You have to tell the story about the first time we went to the restaurant, though. It's a remarkable story.
Great story.
I basically, my mother had passed, and the day that she had passed, I don't know why I did it, but I went into her pocketbook, and I'll never forget, I had the pink Wet n Wild lipstick and her little package of Doublemint gum, and just the way that your mom's purse has a certain smell to it, and I took a $20 bill out of her wallet, and I literally carried it with me for a decade. I had run out of gas one time. I got stuck in a parking garage. I just would not spend that money. Then I was up for this beautiful job, and I hadn't gotten the job yet, but we were on the East Coast for a baptism. We were godparents to a dear friend's daughter, and I said, "Oh, Steve, we should go to the restaurant because when are we going to be on the East Coast again?" And I said, "Okay." So I called, and Joe was like, "We just had a cancellation." So we're driving there. I said, "Don't say I'm up for the job because I don't want to be a weirdo like that." And we get there, we have the greatest meal ever, and then the bill comes. And it's cash only. And I was like, the bill was $100. We literally had $100 to the T. And I said, oh my God, what if I get this job? Then I'm going to be the asshole, the jerk that didn't tip the waitress. Like, this is horrible. And it was just this, it like came into my head and my heart. And it was my mother. She said, take the 20, the 20, put it down. You'll get this. We'll do this together. And I did. I put that $20 down after carrying it for a decade.
That's amazing.
The next day, I got the call that I got the job.
Right.
How about that? That's really powerful.
Thank you.
It is sort of a, it's a universal thing, right? Your mother. But
yes,
in the Italian culture, there's something I think a little specific. And you always talk all the time about, if you go to an Italian Catholic household, every other Catholic culture, you see crucifixes, right? But for us, it's the Blessed Mother.
Yes.
Italian Catholicism is the story of a son and his mother.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
true.
it.
That's a very beautiful sentence. Wow. I tell you, you're amazing when you're not coughing.
Well, I mean, Good Friday in Spain is a crucified Christ.
Right.
Good Friday in Italy is look what my son did to me.
That's really true, right? That's very true. Yeah. I think, coming from families where,
It's a matriarchal.
It's a matriarchal culture.
Yes.
It appears patriarchal, Italian America or Italian culture,
The
traditional
south
culture.
of Italy.
Yeah, not at our house.
No, but it's not. It's what did they say that in Italian they say the father's the head, but the mother's the neck, right? The mom's got
I
to
love
turn
that, yes.
everything to.
But that's a very Greek, because we're Greeks.
Yeah, is that right?
Sure. I mean, look at the DNA of the south of Italy.
I know we're Greeks.
But I'm
I
saying,
don't know
like,
that's a Greek theme,
Sure,
though.
I think that everyone says they're just like Italians, which is not true. Only people that we could kind of have that conversation with, Southern Italians, are with Greeks, and they have the vibe is similar. I wouldn't say it's exact. I would say it's similar.
I had a
I mean, think about the Roman house. Not to interrupt, but think about the Roman house. So the Roman house is a high walls, a doorway, and a courtyard. Mm-hmm. We're keeping everything in the courtyard.
Yeah.
I mean, think of Pompeii, right? There's the outside street, and then there's the house with the courtyard.
Yeah.
That's why you can go to a big city in Italy where the streets are dirty, but the houses are immaculate.
Absolutely.
You could eat off the floor.
Absolutely. That's
Which shows the exterior and the interior.
yeah.
The outside
exterior
and
of
the family
of
inside are two different realities.
The exterior is for utility, sometimes entertainment. The interior is where everything really happens, right? I think that's the sort of family model, and I mean, we've talked to Brenda before about this, right? And your upbringing as an Italian American, particularly in a place like Texas, where that's sort of unique. But
They said Australian there.
I'm sure. I hope.
I hear you're Australian. Shut my mouth. They had no wisdom at all.
I can't even picture you in Texas. I can't even. And I love Texas, but I can't even picture you there.
Well, I had no idea why I was there. I was too young to evaluate.
But you tell us stories about your dad, your mom.
Yeah.
For you, this is an interesting role, right? Playing the Nonna. What did you think about? Like, how did you end up in the cast? First of all, did you go on an audition? Were you called? What happened?
We got together in little boxes. You know,
Zoom.
Oh yeah,
Zoom.
Everybody's favorite.
It was Zoom
and we
time.
were
Yeah.
laughing
Right.
and talking and laughing. I thought, my God, this guy's so charming. I was having such a good time. I thought, this isn't an audition. This is a friendship.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know, and so we just got along really well, and we were laughing a lot.
Yeah.
And he's a great laugher.
That's good.
So all of a sudden, the work ethic was like, we're laughing, we're telling stories. This is great.
What did you
know?
bring to it? Did you think of your mom as you're acting out this role?
I think there was a combination of ladies that I grew up with.
Yeah.
My Aunt Mary, when the doorbell rang, it was my father's sister. She said, "Who is he?" I grew up with her.
Yeah.
And the other one who was Aunt Tessie, and they all came from Sicily to follow my father. She would say, "Can you imagine this? You know how many years she's been here? She still can't say who is there." So I grew up with these kind of people
Yeah.
who never lost their authenticity about where they came from.
Yeah.
beautiful.
And they were always proud of it. And they always would, "Brenda, why don't you speak Italian?" I said, "Because I'm busy speaking English."
Well, you made good use out of that.
They would call me Stunata.
Did they really?
You know, I would get up when I was really little and look in the mirror, and my grandmother would say to my mother, "Something wrong with her. She's talking to the mirror." And I was just acting. You know what I
That
mean?
actually worries me because
It was just
my
me
daughter's
saying,
like that.
"This
She's
is
always
my-
in the mirror. She's always talking in the mirror. I'm like,
I'm
oh,
always
gosh.
talking to them. And it was me really doing what I was going to do in the future.
Sure.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
My grandmother, Nanette, she said to my mother, "She's not. Be careful. She's not well."
I think that the idea that you're training to be an actor as a young kid is kind of anathema to that mentality. Like it's so.
But sometimes it happens when you're very young.
I can imagine it does.
You know, these little things happen.
Yeah.
And so, as I grew up, I knew where I was going. And my father said, "You're not going to college. You're going to give up 4 years of that kind of freedom.
Yeah.
You'll never have it again."
No,
I said,
he's not
"That's
wrong.
okay."
Yeah.
I said, "Because I'm going to be in New York and I'll be on Broadway stage." He said, "You're going to what?" I said, "Be on the Broadway stage."
You're right,
You know,
though.
How's he going to stop that?
But you know,
He sent me to New York to go to the academy, to go to the neighborhood playhouse, to decide which one I wanted to go to. Yeah, he knew.
Yeah.
It wasn't
That
worth
was
the
very.
fight.
That was very advanced. That was very forward-looking for that time.
Yeah, yeah.
People would have
Well,
probably.
he went. You know what? He came from Sicily. He was on a donkey. They took a picture, and he ended up in NYU with a scholarship to become a lawyer. And he
Wow.
graduated with honors.
Oh,
So he couldn't
That's amazing.
understand
Wow.
Yeah.
where I didn't have respect for 4 years of the last real, true freedom I would ever have.
Wow.
And you know what I mean? I said, "That's not freedom to me."
you know, it's interesting,
It
right?
was like he couldn't
Wait,
understand me.
I have to say, Brenda, the idea of going from he was on a donkey and someone took the picture to he graduated from NYU within 12 seconds. That's a great story. That's an amazing
It's
story.
everything you need to know, right? And
But I
that-
mean, he was really a dedicated scholar.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, and he knew where he was going. I said, "I know where I'm going too." He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to go be on the Broadway stage." And he went like this.
but you were right, right? You were. I mean,
was right.
That's right. That's
part of
right.
that is our penchant for passion. We tend to be passionate people, and like I'm thinking now about the opening scene of the movie. Not going to give away spoilers here, but our main character, who's based on your life, right, Joe, is observing and admiring the process of the kitchen amongst the cacophony of 8 billion
Right.
people, and what was a scene that would be familiar to most of us. But it's clear that there is the sort of acquisition of vocation in his observation of stuff and his affection for it. Is that really how your life was? Did you kind of,
I think a lot of life happens in the kitchen. You know,
from a young age, you were sort of drawn?
that's when you go to your grandmother's house, everything happens in the kitchen, and even when I entertain at my own home, I'm in the kitchen, and everybody just is in the kitchen. So it's really a focal point, and it's really, I think, the heart of the house.
And I mean, not to get too anthropological, but that's the history of the house, right? It's just a building built around a fire. And
A kitchen and a bathroom.
Not too anthropological.
well, but I mean,
That's the crack that we run on.
that is what we love, right? But like, if you study the history of the house, right, like the hall, the whole model is about being around. I mean, look, even any human dwelling, the igloo, right? That's what it is, a protection for fire.
Yeah.
And what do you do on the fire? You cook and you live, and you're like,
Orsini defined this in the Madonna of 115th Street. Because he came up with the term the domus.
Yeah.
The Latin word for home, but in the Italian American sense.
Explain.
If I only had the skills to explain what he did, it's above my pay grade. But it was the concept of the home in an institutional sense, with the mother as the patriarch.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean,
And it was the mother. That was the key. But I mean, it builds. It's a. When did his book come out? The 80s.
Yeah.
Like 85 or
something like that. Yeah.
And this is a. We are skimming the top of what he already constructed in the sense that, saying you had an institutional family, with the mother at the center. Maybe more so than in other cultures. I know I'm gonna get beat up on that one. But I think there's a sense where the mother is running the show.
But think about, like, you talk about the kitchen, right? Especially back in the old days. Like, one of the things Pat and I share is that we were both the last people in our families, forever, born in the tenement house of the family, right? So, like, born in the hospital, brought home to the tenement railroad apartment.
Yeah.
And what are those railroad apartments? But a kitchen that you walk into where everything is conducted because the bathroom was added on later.
Can I tweak that?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's not the real kitchen.
Well,
There
if
is
you
a
can afford a
basement-
basement kitchen that the whole family uses,
That is the real kitchen is in a bunker situation.
Yes,
That's very true.
We called
yes.
the kitchen in Jersey City was behind the store because we had the fruit and vegetable store. When that closed, behind the store, and the store became one gigantic communal living space.
That's what my grandparents had. My dad's family in our house had we called it the shack, but in the backyard they had built this, I don't know, the kitchen basically, a shack around a kitchen, and everybody basically spent all their time there. My grandparents happened to be on the first floor when I was a kid, but yeah, everything centered around the kitchen. Even when my wife and I built our house now with starting our family, we had the chance to renovate this old house, and we knocked down all the walls around the kitchen.
Wow.
Everything cycles around the kitchen, and that's because
The wall shouldn't be there. You're correct.
yeah, you should not, because what happens is you have them, and then nobody's sitting on the other side of the couch. They're just crowding the kitchen. You're trying to cook, so it's like, all right, we gotta mitigate against this. But yes, so you were drawn to it always. How did the restaurant come about?
So the restaurant was after losing all my family. I had a little bit of money that I inherited, and I had this idea that there was a lot of culture out there. These ladies carried a lot of culture with them. I was very fortunate to spend 10 years of my life with this woman. Her name was Francesca Leone, and she was Calabrese. So she was a wonderful woman, and she really explained the mechanics of all the dishes that I grew up with, how you actually make them. So I received this tremendous education on food. We would make soprasada, and we would make cracked olives and tomatoes and capicola, I mean, everything. So I had all this information in my head, and I said there must be a lot of ladies out there that carry all this wisdom with them. So I put an ad in the Italian newspaper, the America Oggi, and the space was being built out. So I invited all these ladies to my home, and they all came. They came with their husbands, and they came with their neighbors and their kids and their grandkids and their cousins. And so I had a house full of people, and a lot of these ladies had plates of food, and they're like chasing me around the house with these plates of food that they wanted me to try their dishes. And so I was, completely overwhelmed by all of this, and it really was. I always look back at it was like a Fellini movie, and so crazy beginning.
Could I have an anthropological observation for people?
First,
who
you
are
have to
there?
answer. You have to answer one question because
Yes.
you said that you were talking about the inside of the house and that's clean and the outside of the house. Why? I grew up in Brooklyn. Everybody's outside hosing the outside of their side, the concrete.
The stoop counts. The
Yeah.
stoop counts as inside the house.
Oh, okay.
We all know that. Yeah.
We were just saying, like, some people go to, there's some place in Italy that if you'll find trash in a public place, like a street, right? But you will never find it. The home will be impeccable.
My block I grew up in Bath Beach, Brooklyn, and everybody was outside, and everybody
Oh,
kept
yeah,
the outside of their
sure,
homes
sure.
were impeccable. The streets, the sidewalks, the flower, the gardens, everything was. It was a very
It helps
community.
in America to have functioning public service.
But
I mean,
I-
thinking about like in Italy,
all right,
when you go to like
let me
Rome, there's a
amend that.
garbage
Oh, yeah,
strike
or
all the
Naples,
time. And
Naples,
yeah.
yeah.
I
there's
didn't
no,
want to say, but when Naples had those garbage strikes,
Yes.
and someone was going off to me about how filthy it was, but I said, you don't understand. The juxtaposition of that is the street might be filthy, but the house will always be immaculate. So
okay.
the house will always be
Sacred.
and smelling of some type of bleach.
Yes. Or vinegar. Or vinegar.
Vinegar,
Yeah.
a bleach smell. But one question I wanted to add, and I think because we were having a lot of pregame conversations, those women didn't need those jobs. Those women wanted those jobs in the sense that it wasn't an economic need. It was like, I have a skill. The reason I bring it up is that my grandmother had maybe a 6th grade education, but my grandmother was an excellent cook because it's almost like she went to culinary school, right? So she was with her mother till her mother died when she was like 19, 20 years old. And I would often say, like, people don't credit the skills these women had because we're in a world that we only award a diploma for an educational institution, right? But if you leave school at 12 and you're baking bread and making this and making that, by the time you're 17, 18, 19 years old, you're really an expert at that. So there's no certificate for excellence in domestic skills. Like, we don't have that as a culture. But I'm saying, like, these women that you had, a lot of them, they didn't have CIA training or Johnson and Wales, but they were experts. They were artisans at what they
So
did.
going back to Francesca, Francesca was from Calabria, and she was, born there, and she grew up there, and she came when she was 18. So she told me stories of how her parents, when she was a little girl, would send her to one woman's house to learn how to sew, and to somebody else's house to learn how to bake bread, and to somebody else's house to learn how to make cheese. So this was an education. By the time she was 18 years old, she knew how to do everything.
Wow.
It's amazing.
So this is a culture that is specific to the old country. It's not. It doesn't happen here so much. I mean, it happens a little bit. I'm sure that there's a lot of parents that try to pass on knowledge to their children, but back then it was an obligation. It was a
core curriculum.
It's something that had to happen.
Yeah, it's like the core curriculum for life. I mean, that's...
Your institution, in my opinion, because I remember when it came about living here, it was revolutionary in many senses. But I think part of it was you acknowledged the value that these women had in their education.
I was in awe.
And you like one of the first people came out and said, "This is we're showcasing these people because they have these tremendous skills." I think I'm on the same.
I was in
saw
awe of my heritage, and I just wanted to try to bring that forward, and these ladies were packed. They were packed with it, and some of them did want to make money. Some of them came in and they just wanted something to do, and they wanted to stay busy and they wanted to get out of the house. But some of them, they wanted to make money, and they were very happy to make money.
I think you talk about being in awe of our heritage, right? And obviously, one of our co-hosts here around the show, Rosella, this is what she did, right? She created this sort of sense of preservation and promotion, right? That's a big part of her life with Cooking with Nonna and all these projects that have come out of it. But the whole concept of Nonna, and that's why I'm so glad that this is out there on Netflix, because you're sharing kind of in some ways a secret word with the world. Because my mom, right, when we were kids, we only spoke English, so we called our grandmothers grandma, even though they were super grandmothers. My mom, when my brother started his family and first one to have kids, she wanted to be Nonna. So somewhere between the 80s and the 10 years ago, between works like yours or what Rosello's done, that word has taken a stock with the world to say, like, I'm not just a grandmother, I'm a Nonna, right? And it's like a slightly different thing. So I love when we get to promote these things. We kind of have always known that, right? That our grandmothers were like these engines, and they were medic and gardener and all these magical things they could do. But for the outside world, I'm asking, I guess, is that really universal? Like, how did you guys take this project and make it applicable to the universe, or didn't you? Did you just say, like, this is a story we're telling? How do you invite other people in to understand us through this story?
I think the specific nature is actually what made it universal. I can't tell you how many people have come up to all of us, I think, from different backgrounds, different cultures, and go, oh my God, this movie's about me. This is about my grandmother all over the world. Like, and that's really, and then you realize, family, you got to share your story about your mom when she said that to you. I mean, family is in every culture, family, and really in the end, that's what we got, and I think there's a very, I love being an Italian American. I feel very proud of that. And the times that I've gotten to go to Italy, I kind of like walk a little taller, like I belong somewhere. I belong here to these people and this, so I do think the specificity of the Italian actually lended to the universal.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. I always say we're very human people. That's our strength.
Yes,
is in our humanity.
Salt of the earth.
Yeah.
And I would say for me, I grew up in Pittsburgh, I'm Polish, Slovak, a little bit Irish, so I married into it, and so I think it was a great combination of like Liz writing from her personal experience and me kind of observing it or marrying into it to see like how, seeing how really we all have so much in common, way more than there's any differences. But there is a special magic to your all culture, I have to say. There's something about, maybe it is the matriarchy, maybe it is the love of food. It's a really great thing to enter into.
And I'm sorry.
No, all I'll say is the one thing that I tried just as kind of an outsider to it was like when I shot the scenes where little Joe is looking at Mom and Nonna cook. I remember my grandma Ann's kitchen very well in Duquesne, Pennsylvania. There's something that is universal. Like you look up and the grown-ups are doing something that you don't understand, but it's so important. And that sense of wonder or that sense of that magical nostalgia, I was chasing that the whole movie,
Absolutely.
And that's something that I also love is that it's like it's so emotional, but in the best way. I love like growing up in a place that kind of you didn't talk about stuff, things go under the rug. It's so cool to be around a culture that just kind of says everything. You know what I mean? That wears it on its sleeve. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think that's it's interesting because
That's deep.
It is deep because we have. I think to the outside world, we appear often as the culture who like is most comfortable saying and discussing, but then we also have our sort of like. I don't say whitewashing, a rose-colored version of things, and the stuff that we keep inside. I think it's different than the stuff that maybe other people keep inside. But it's an interesting kind of dichotomy to tackle, especially to tackle it in film. And one of the things I always find with these kind of films where there's an ethnic lens is you're going to go out and you're going to cast this thing, right? And it's sort of a fine line, I would imagine, between somebody who's able to portray a certain ethnicity, particularly what would be deemed a white ethnic group, right, where you could look like any million of other things, but how? Because you have an all-star cast in this thing, and how did you guys go about building, this amazing contingency?
Well, I have to say it starts with the script. The script was great, and the characters were great. So that always helps. For me, I was looking for something that felt just completely undeniably authentic. Right? It wasn't a parody of itself. It wasn't like the cliche or the trope. It was here. The best example I can give is when I met Talia Shire for the first time. We were on Zoom, and we didn't talk about The Godfather or Rocky or Connie or Adrian. We talked about her mother's gnocchi for like 15 minutes. You know what I'm saying? It was that I was interested. Yes. Great actors, of course, across the board, and every one of them is stellar. But I was so interested in the person. You know what I mean? The pride of their family, talking about stories of like, and everybody had them. Everybody had them. I mean, and Brenda had a million of them. And so yeah, we were after that authentic, that thing, that people that were proud of where they came from. And also, I always one thing I love about casting movies, and I've done this with all the movies I've been fortunate enough to direct, is I love when people are like, they could be a legend, and you remind them, no, they're a person. Right? Or like Lorraine and Talia, who'd never been asked to do a comedy in their lives. I'm like, but they're funny and they're going to be incredible at this. Yeah. And they were. And so it's just, the all-star cast, I have to say, many, many times I would say action, I'd say cut, I'd come over, I'd talk to everybody, I'd go back, and I could not believe that I, first of all, was in the room to talk to this group, but they would listen to me. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a remarkable,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what budget you guys did this movie for. I don't know if that's something that you discuss on these things, but to be able to build the players that you did, this cast of really substantial actors and actresses, and I think also the interesting thing for me is like how many, because I spent my whole life in this Italian stuff. People don't know Vince Vaughn is half Italian or Susan Sarandon's Italian. There's a real authenticity to the
and if they knew the right thing, they'd come on the podcast. They would perform their patriotic.
That's right. We can send them over next. Come on, let's do the rounds. This is not just
that's your what's that word they use? Not marching orders. To do, what's the word the kids use for IAFL?
Who knows?
When you walk away from something, you got to do something.
We run an Italian American youth conference in Florida every year, and we're becoming increasingly unable to understand the way the kids talk because they use these words like, we got to, I don't even know what they say.
That's the takeaway. We need Vince Vaughn on.
Okay.
We need Susan Sarandon on. Okay. They all have to come and do their patriotic duty and show up.
All right.
Talk about being Italian.
Because people don't know. That was the great thing. I mean, everyone knew you were Italian because it was with your name, right?
Yeah.
But these other people, they were not, they no one knew. Or people don't know, or people don't recognize.
Well, because we're at the point now where our community is not, you're not an ethnic actor anymore. Just like Mike Piazza, I always say Mike Piazza was kind of like the last Italian ball player, where people were like, I'm a Yankee fan, but I rooted for him on the Mets because he was so Italian, right?
Sure.
And I don't know, you tell me, you've had this amazingly long career. Are there Italian actors and actresses anymore, or have you always been sort of just like you could play anybody, or were you, when you started, were you an ethnic?
I think there were a lot of Italian guys at Universal, which is where I really grew up. There was Ben Cazzara, Harry Guardino. There were a lot of Italian actors working, so I felt at home. And they'd say, Brenda, you're Italian, and don't forget it.
Yeah. But at that point,
I get a lot of that on this set, and I'd go, shh, what are you doing? And don't forget it.
But because at that point, you could have basically been anything, right? You were, and you played roles of all different backgrounds.
I guess people thought I was Italian because, as you said, the name was there.
But there was no limitation for you.
What does that mean?
I'm saying, like, you weren't typecast.
I have limitations.
We all have limitations, believe me. This I'm sure, yes. This studio's full of them. I'm saying, like, nobody typecast you and said you can only play Italians. You can play anything.
No.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever suggest you change your name?
I can't remember. I wasn't listening if they did. Do you know what I mean? Because it wasn't something that I felt comfortable to even discuss.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was never ashamed of my name, nor did I think it needed to be changed. Do you know what I mean? In the process of becoming a professional, I never thought, whoops, that name is a problem.
Yeah.
I didn't think that at all. And I was always overjoyed to meet these Italian guys that Universal had signed.
Yeah.
Hey.
No, it's true.
You're one of us,
That's the camaraderie.
Harry
I love that.
Guardino was like...
I'll never forget when I moved to Texas. I was there for almost a year. And it was kind of like a rough point in my life, and I was just not really taking to Dallas like I should have. And this lady from Kansas City, Irish lady, but she grew up in Little Italy, Kansas City, Mary McKay. I still call her boss 20 years later. And she hired me, and I couldn't find a job. I was broke. And she goes, after a couple of weeks, she's like, I know what's wrong with you. You don't have any other Italians. So she took me to the Italian Club of Dallas.
Oh my God.
And I met all these guys, and it was like my whole life turned around because
wow.
What
year was this?
2007, 8, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before that, there was no Italian club.
It was all people
God
who had,
forbid you should open an Italian club in Texas.
No, it was a lot of what do you call relocated individuals? What do you say? I don't.
Transplants?
Transplants. Thank you. That was either going to sound like transplants or witness protection.
But they couldn't even-
It was transplants. It was all
They couldn't
transplants.
even say the word.
the
They
same
said
thing?
Australian.
I got a lot of
They
Italian
didn't
when I
even
was
know
there.
what that word meant.
I
So
did.
you Australian?
But they did teach me some of the places, like some businesses where Sicilian families have been there since the 20s, and they showed me these like little hidden gems in Dallas that was great.
Wow.
But
From years ago.
Yeah, from 100 years. But
Ooh.
I was in like a safety net, right? That's where I feel safe, and
Yeah.
that's where I flourished. So having them to just hear and talk to, and do anything important, really, just to be around. There's a safety in being around your own people, I think, and sometimes I think it's unpopular to say that, but it's a good thing, I think. Right? Is that
Yes.
fair?
Yes.
Oh, I
very
think it's
fair.
important.
I do too.
Yeah.
I had it
Yeah.
Yeah,
in
but
my family.
Yeah.
You know, my Aunt Mary, my Aunt Tessie, all of them
Yeah.
refused to allow me not to accept my Italian heritage.
Yeah.
You know, don't forget who you are.
That's right. Because you
You
forget
know.
who you are, you forget where you're
They
going.
would,
Yeah.
they would
Oh, yes.
really almost scold you
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
into
yes.
remembering who you are.
There's great pressure to
You
that.
know, don't change your name. I was told, everybody said, don't change your name. I wasn't thinking about it, but I just remember they were kind of like, you know, Aunt Mary made my first dress for a Shakespearean play I was in.
Wow.
And, you know, she said, don't forget I'm the one who made it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that.
You see?
Because they go with you then, right?
And
So
it
she's
was
with you
all
there on
blue
stage.
satin with the lace, and I mean, she really did a beautiful thing.
That's
and
beautiful.
I remember standing there, and everybody showed up. The cousins, everybody showed up, and I came out in the dress, and I got one of these. It was some of the first applause I ever heard.
Oh.
Because
Wow.
that's figura. That's bella figura. You are them, and they are you.
Yeah.
When you're
Yeah.
and like you tell the greatest story ever about your shoes, right? With your grandmother.
Yes.
Can
What's that?
I went to Catholic school. My
So
entire
did
life. So I had to wear black leather shoes my entire life. And my grandmother would polish them every morning.
Oh my
Wow.
God!
So I said to her one day, I was a junior in high school, I'm like, you don't have to do this. I mean, this is ridiculous. You have to get up. And she told me, when you walk out that door, you don't represent you represent me.
Oh my God!
Wow.
That's great.
I love it.
There's a,
She's right.
there was a depth in that. Her, because she took but think about this, because people out there in Medigan land don't, I was a vessel.
Yes.
I was just a vessel. Like,
Yeah.
she, because in her world, when my mother would come home from Catholic school in the 50s, my grandmother had her take her dress off, and my grandmother would press it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my mother would go back with a pressed dress.
Yeah.
But I don't think people today understand where everybody goes. They go to like a graduation and a wedding in their pajamas
Yeah.
and their slippers. The idea of appearance,
Yeah.
how important it was to that generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it was the idea of if you go out,
Pajamas.
oh, you should see how they walk around. I mean look around. Take a walk
It's
outside.
unbelievable.
It is kind of
Hey, we're in
wacky.
Slobland.
It's sort of cute.
Totally.
Yeah, they walk around. They're a mess. They don't shower. They smell.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need a shave. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I feel like 150 years from now, like the president's going to give a State of the Union address in a bathrobe. You know what I mean? It's not going in a good direction.
Cousin Danny never shaved. You know what I mean?
150
It would be
days,
that. There you go. Danny, go take off the hair.
The idea that the children, this is so complicated because you know what it is. There's more and more people now who don't get this. When domesticity was the career, and you were from 6th grade on taking care of domestic stuff, because we're in a world that worships the 4-year diploma at an institution. They don't realize. I don't feel my grandmother ever felt less that she didn't go. She felt like, well, people judge you by going to school, but my grandmother had no interest in school. My grandmother, when I've ever had a bad student, I think of my grandmother because my grandmother hated school. She didn't want to go to school. All my grandmother wanted to do was make zapelas and iron. She had no interest. You know, Danielle or Terry, no, our friend Danielle always says like her, in a different world, her grandmother had like all kinds of like academic aspiration that couldn't have been satisfied. My grandmother was the opposite. And she was proud. My zapelas are the best. My monogotti are the best. your shoes are polished better than anybody else's. They were her trophies.
But that's like
And her world. But it wasn't a lesson then.
That's like having a great film screen.
But they also had
right?
a different learning process.
Yes.
Yeah,
The way they learned was different.
Yeah.
And they would give that to you.
Yeah.
But I don't think
You don't talk that way to a priest.
That's right.
No, correct.
You know why? It would be because he's a priest.
Yeah. The old
You
ways.
know, and you would get these simple kinds of explanations.
Yes.
But more,
Because he's your father.
But the world is
I
but
mean,
the world
it
is
would
simpler
be-
than we make it too. Like simple explanations of just because, which are becoming lost, right? Because everybody has the authority to question everything now. Those simple like that is humanity, right? The world is simple. Like
Yes.
in the old days, if
I
you were a
think that's so
caveman
true.
and you backed up your father, he would just crack you, and you're like, "Oh, you're stronger than me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that."
But
Right?
this is-
That's humanity. I hate to say it that way. Those simple rules of because there's something we lose those, we lose something. We lose a reality a little bit. Like, of
Yeah.
course, you shouldn't back talk your father. That's just totally
But-
against nature.
And they believed there were things you didn't have to explain.
Yes, that's exactly
You
right.
just knew them.
You just know them. Yeah.
Because you're Italian, you know them.
Yeah, it's who you are.
Yeah, you go and you thank her for this, and or you go and you bring bread.
I
A
got news
bread?
for you. You talk about go
yeah,
thank.
you bring bread to them.
You talk about I was like this.
Yeah.
You talk about go thank. I was just having this conversation with my wife about going to stuff, and somebody didn't come to a thing, and then somebody got offended by it. I'm like, but my wife is old school. Her parents are old school, so we understand. Like, you have to do visitata. You have to go visit everybody, and you have
Everybody.
to. And like these kids today,
they have
they
no
don't.
sense
They
of
have
obligation.
no sense of obligation. to that stuff.
The defining element of the modern world is a lack of sense of obligation.
And please and thank
Well
you.
said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gone.
Politeness.
Well,
is-
I'd like to put family on that. Family obligation.
yes.
You
Yeah,
know, to
that's-
be
that's
specific,
gone.
because it seems like families become less important to be with all of them.
Yes.
Like they would sit around and they would have lunch, right? No, but a late lunch. And they would go on, and then at the end they were cracking nuts and talking and telling stories. And you'd be upstairs in your bedroom going, my God, they're laughing so loud.
Yeah.
And they would be there, and then they would be gone. And you'd think, oh my God, it's going to be peaceful. But they all came back
Of course. Yeah.
at 9
It's
o'clock.
ever present.
And they were sitting there cracking nuts, eating. They had made a little dinner, not as big as lunch, but and I'd hear them and I'd go, oh, Dio mio, because that's what I'd hear
So,
downstairs.
not to be the outsider, like you literally cracking nuts, like
Yeah,
to
yeah,
eat.
yeah.
or-
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know if it was like some kind of all
They
right.
sit
Nuts
there
at the
and
end
they
of the
crack
big-
nuts.
That's like October.
Could be
to
busting
January.
chops too. Yeah. That, but
that's a
yeah.
nut season.
I
Yeah.
still have the things that
Oh, yeah.
cracks, the silver
Sure.
things.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
had the same
Oh my God.
nutcracker.
Yes.
We all had the
Yes.
same, with the thing that picked inside to
Yes.
get the walnut out.
Yes.
It came with
I
those
have a
little
couple
The
of
little
those.
thing that
Yeah.
grows
Yeah,
at the end. I
fantastic.
mean, I
The
just
dish, the glass
I grew up
dish.
with this.
love that.
I
Yeah.
grew up with this.
Yeah,
and
I
with
got-
people that wanted to talk about the past and she was a putana. They would say things like that, and she was I guess in lower New York City, wherever they were living at the time. They would say some terrible things about some woman they knew.
Because
She
it's
was a
But
putana.
I want to jump into the Butana category. Two things I want to jump into.
Fast.
You mean
I
that
hope I
literally, or
didn't-
you?
I know what
the wrong
this is a
thing.
family
I thought this was a
show.
family
We gotta
show.
keep it
All
clean,
right.
but the first thing was like,
I thought you were hitting on Brenda. I'm
but
sorry.
no,
go ahead.
why do you have to speak nice to the priest? Because if you don't, how do I look as a parent?
Yeah, exactly.
It always was self-reflective.
Sure.
If you go out and you look a mess, how do I look as a parent? If you fail out of school, forget about the fact that you'll not get a job. How do I go? So I also think we don't talk about the fact that it was also self-reflective.
Absolutely, 100%.
So you are a ambassador. You were their ambassador, right? The same thing with my shoes, right? Was she polishing the shoes for me? Were you polishing? These are deep
But
intellectual
that's the
questions.
same point as Brenda makes. Like, everybody's in the house.
But why Bhutan?
And you think,
But I
No,
I
go
think that people don't understand us. Eric, our friend Eric, his grandmother was from Sicilian, Calabria, and she used to tell him a story. And she was good looking when she was young, and guys would hit on her, and she would say to them, "I have nothing to say to you. If you're interested in me, you go talk to my mother and father and do this the correct way." Because they put themselves on a high pedestal. I am a woman. I am valuable. I'm good looking. I can cook and clean. I'll take care of you. But I come at a high price, right? So that you have to go through a vetting. So the idea was you're a Bhutana because you gave it away.
right.
Mine is very expensive. And now I'm trying to say my value is high.
Yeah.
So you have to you can't touch me because I am so above your pay grade that you have to go to appeal to my parent. The courting thing was also a value one. I think our grandparents' generation was like, no, you can't kiss me, you can't touch me, you can't walk me home because I am a high standard. Yeah. Now, besides the parents would kill them. Besides they would have been dead. Yeah. But there's so I think people don't I think people would say, oh, it was like a Catholic guilt sexual thing. Oh, they were just afraid. It was no. I don't buy into that.
It's self-worth. There's real self-worth. I mean, look, that's what this is a story about, right? This is, and your life is a testament to that. It starts at the point of like, there's no Culinary Institute of America degree attached to these women. There's no laudits until you start this project, but they all know their self-worth. That's why they showed up to your open call for talent, right? From culinary perspective.
Well, from a culinary perspective, all of these ladies, they're the source.
Yeah.
So all these great chefs that go to all these great institutes to learn all these recipes, they comes from them.
Yeah.
So for me, I see the big picture. So I wanted to go directly to the source.
Yeah.
Oh, I just want to tell you a real Italian story.
Please do.
I was like 15, maybe younger, but I'll go with 15. And I just loved boys. I was at that age where it's like, he's cute.
Sure.
Yeah. Cowboys.
Yeah.
I was growing up in Texas. Right. They always had hats and boots. And so I got used to finding them attractive. Like, oh, I like that cowboy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So one time, and I think his name was Keith Baxter, he said, come on, I'm going to put you in my car, which was a truck. I'm going to take you and marry you.
Oh.
And I thought, oh, well, that's just fine. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm yours. And I got in the car with him, and we're driving. And at that time, my mother and father, and my father had become successful with the restaurant in Dallas. And so when you came home to my house on Walnut Hill Lane, it was quite nice. And there was a road that you drive up, a driveway that had rocks on it, and your wheels would make nice little sounds. And you'd get out, and there you were home. So he picked me up, and he's driving me way out of town. I don't know where that dude was going. But anyway, I was just, oh, wow, I'm getting married. I'll never forget, I was so dumb. Anyway, finally, he pulls over about an hour later, and he puts his thing, and he said, I'm taking you home. And I said, what? He said, yeah, we ain't getting married. I got to take you home right now. And I went, oh, I was trying to talk him out of it. I thought, well, that's the end of my white dress. And he turned the car around the truck and really kind of roughly and drove like a bat out of hell. So anyway, my poor father, he must have thought, he didn't know who I was at that time in my life. He was hoping I was reading books instead of in cars with cowboys. And we got home, and he goes up in the car on the pebbles, and I remember hearing them going, I still wonder what had happened. This was all done. So, and he leaned across me, and he opened the door, and I happened to look up, and my father was sitting on the back porch. And he saw me, and I'm getting used to it. And he got up, and I was just looking at him and he walked in the house. And I thought, uh-oh. But that's an Italian father, let me tell you. And I went in, I got out of the car, I went into my home, I looked for him, he was nowhere. He had gone into the bedroom and closed the door.
Wow.
So number one, it was a lesson.
Yeah.
And number two, I had to deal with someone who was already told me what he thought.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is very Italian.
Yeah.
Very Italian. And very classy and very basic.
Yeah, that's
Do you know
very
what I mean?
true.
But I remember thinking, well, I'm never going to do that again. What did he mean, married? All of a sudden, I grew up.
Yeah.
I grew up a bit.
Yeah, fantasy is...
But I always remembered that moment with my father because to me, that was really Italian. What is he going to do, scream? You know, he graduated from NYU. He was a corporate lawyer. He was too educated. But he was sitting outside the back. It wasn't the front porch.
Sure.
It was in the back with a chair. And when he saw me, and the car hadn't even really stopped, he got up and walked in the house. And I saw him. Oh my God!
Because you talk about the cacophony.
Can I just ask one question?
family.
Yeah,
just one
please.
question.
But that's
what the
family.
What the hell did he say when he saw Midnight Cowboy? I mean, that's amazing.
He wasn't alive.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry.
He died in 1958. He
Oh,
died.
God bless.
They
I'm
didn't
sorry.
have Eliquis in those days, so that was a coronary thrombosis.
Oh.
And he went with his hands on the table.
Oh.
You
You
know,
lost your father young.
yeah, I
God
did.
bless. God
very
bless.
young, and he was very wise.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a way of sending me a message.
Yeah.
Because he didn't really know. He maybe he didn't know about the marriage thing, but he didn't like what happened.
Yeah.
And
Sure,
he
of
happened
course.
to be home because he was building a restaurant, but he sat in that chair, and I think he was waiting for me to come home.
Sure.
I'm sure he was.
Oh yeah.
But that's Italian.
But I mean,
I'm
yeah,
Sicilian, whatever.
It's very
Yeah.
Sicilian.
Very Sicilian.
Because
yeah.
like you talk about the right, making this film and bringing all these
Isn't that great?
I love this story.
the cacophony of it, and we're an outward people, and that's what we talked about earlier. Like, yes, we're an outward people, and we're expressive and emotive, but then there's that deep layer. I've been screamed at by my mom more than I can. I mean, I love my mom to death. She's the best mom in the world. But like, she was like, hey, would yell at us and chase us. That was our life. It was normal.
Yeah.
Big loud arguments, then you make up, and that
Yeah.
sort of Italian like rubber band that everybody stereotypes. But that only exists because you know that that's just the sort of cadence of life.
Yes.
Yes.
The
well
real
said.
thing is when you disappoint your parent and they don't say anything. That's heartbreaking. When family means everything to you, and they hint at like shutting you out.
Oh.
There's no.
Well, I think he
recovery
would have
from that.
sat there all night
Absolutely.
because he thought he saw me. He must have seen me get into that car and drive out of that driveway.
Yeah.
See, so he made a choice to sit there and wait for me to come home. I don't think he knew anything about the marriage or anything, and he never brought it up, and neither did I.
Right, because the message came across.
Neither did I. He was an elegant gentleman, and that was his. If I didn't get that,
Yeah.
then there was nothing else for him to do as a father.
Because we
You
can
know?
have these back and forths. That's okay. It's when it's withholding of the clan. When you feel isolated out, you learn. I mean, I always think
It
about
was
like,
a lesson.
It's a big lesson.
It
yeah.
was a lesson.
You know how the Amish have like Rumschlinger?
Yep.
Right, and you go out and like the kids like come out of Amish world and they go out and do all kinds of crazy whacked
Yeah.
out stuff and they come back.
Yep.
And if you decide you don't want to come back, you're completely shunned and shut off. That would kill me.
And
right?
you know, when I
would.
was much older, I asked my mother, he was your husband. Why did he do that? And she said, that was just his way of telling you
Oh, that's
Wow.
that he was
Wow.
terribly worried and he was disappointed in you.
Yeah.
And that what was he to discuss? He was too smart to say he was going to forbid you. He was going to discuss it with you. It was a happening.
Yeah.
And I think he was praying
Yeah.
that you would come home, and when you came home, that was it. His prayers had been answered. And he went to his bedroom, and he never mentioned it to me. I said, he never said anything. She said, no, that was between you and him.
Wow.
That's impactful.
But that was,
Very powerful.
yes, well said word.
You know, something I'm getting from this discussion I think is so interesting is you were talking about education, which I was very moved by. I was thinking about my grandfather. He fifth grade. I think my grandmother fourth grade. But you're talking about some education. Is the reverence that we have for our elders, like certainly in the Italian culture, and I grew up with that as well. But it's just something that Joe saw that value and respect and reverence for people, it's not based on a degree or an education, this, that, and the other, that there's real beauty in just a really beautiful, a life well lived.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That is where the expertise comes from. You know, I was like, we were talking earlier about, and I think you should mention the thing about names, which I thought was so fascinating. So my name's Stephen Chbosky. I go by Steve in my life. And the reason why I put Stephen on all of my work is that's my grandfather's name. Pap, he's Stephen.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he didn't make it to sixth grade, like when I published my first novel, when I do that's Pap's name.
Couldn't agree
and
more.
I wear it so proudly I can't even tell you. So
Isn't that great? That's great.
That's to me everything. Like we have this conversation on the show a lot about naming conventions, and right, we supposed to be a grandparent-based naming convention in our culture, and like I professionally, when I took the job in D.C. at the National Italian American Foundation, I started going by John M. Viola because the M was from my mom's dad, Michele, who I'm still very close to, thank God, and I was very proud of both my grandfathers. My full name on my birth certificate is John Michael. It's the American version of each name. Then my brother was born, he's Michael. They took that part away from me, and he became Michael, and I just became John. But my dad's dad, who I'm named after, John, he always called me John Michael out of respect because I represented both of those men. And that's that's
Beautiful. to
me a very important...
Do you know what I think is great? They didn't change things.
No, that's
They
right.
came to this country. They took advantage of the opportunities. They were, I think, very honest, very forthright. They continued to keep their family together. They made money. They did the American thing.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yep.
But you
They
kept,
did
but you
the
kept, you
American
kept focused
thing,
on what's
I
sacred,
think,
though.
eloquently.
Yes.
And I really admire when I think back on every single one of them. Even my Aunt Mary, who was sewing hems for women in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Hems,
Yeah, sure.
you know, and you do it like this, and it's almost like a V.
Yeah.
It's beautifully
yes.
done.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they brought themselves in full glory and beauty and honor.
That's
To-
what this
to-
movie's about, right? The
I think
glory
it is.
and
I
the
think it
beauty
is.
of
100%.
And
these
I think
women.
she's a brilliant writer because
That's right.
it's in every moment that I had. It had to do with honor.
Yeah.
And it had to do with, you know, even with the Lorraine, when I threw the fruit, you know, it was like she was like a lower class. That she was like that, you know, and it was, I don't know. Women do fight in Italian family. I've seen it.
Yes.
I've seen it. Someone took a pan and there was eggs in it, and she went like that to her sister. They were having an argument. I left the kitchen. I just left the kitchen.
I threw a
And she took
pomegranate
that
at my
pan
brother once.
and went like
really?
that, and I thought, okie dokie.
My mom almost
I'm
killed
out of
me.
here.
Oh my God.
When we moved into a new house, my mom was gone. My brother and I were fighting, and I threw a pomegranate at him. And,
See?
and you know, my mother had this lady come paint the walls. It wasn't wallpaper. She was so proud of that.
Oh no.
And a pomegranate, you know. So
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, okay, the fight with my brother's over now. Now I got to clean this up before my mother kills me. So I dug myself deeper into a hole. I took her new vacuum. We just moved to a new house, and I vacuumed up this. I destroyed the vacuum. It was pomegranate.
God.
Unbelievable.
Oh man,
All those
it's
seeds.
horrible.
All those seeds.
It was horrible.
All those seeds, baby. Oh my God.
My
That's
brother should have been
great.
responsible for that, but
Jody, I want to ask you a question. When did you realize that you were making a difference in these women's lives?
First, I answer that. I'd like to just talk about my Nonna for a minute, Domenica. So she was a very industrious, very hardworking woman. She worked in a sweatshop, a sewing factory, which so many Italian ladies did back then. And along with my grandfather, who was a barber at the time, they were able to buy their first house. And she would actually take home garments from the factory, and she would farm them out to her friends.
Yeah.
And she would make a couple of pennies on each piece that they did.
God bless her.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so very, very extremely hardworking roots. And but yeah, to making a difference, they I think they loved the fact that they were able to shine, because I think that you kind of take your mother and your grandmother, you kind of take them for granted after a while, because every day they're there and they make your food and your meal and everything, and you don't really appreciate it the way somebody else comes and sits down and appreciates it. So all those accolades that they received immediately, you know, it was fuel. Yeah.
So as we wrap up our time together, I think that the final question for me is a little bit more of a sort of light one, because this has been we're talking about a sweet film on Netflix, but it's a deep conversation,
Yeah.
because there's real depth to this story, your story, the way you guys have created the story, the way you've acted it out. There's some deep stuff here. So to go a little bit on the lighter side, but again, this is also probably equally heavy. The whole concept of food as memory, as culture. I mean, that's there's really no better way, right? Memories jogged most by scent. Taste and scent are the right hand and the left hand. So food carries so much weight. Is there a food for each of us at the table that is our most sort of soul food? I'm down, and if I could have one plate that my mom made or my nonna made or a friend made, what's that one plate that fixes a bad day? If you could have it again.
Well, I'm a pasta boy, and the kind of funny thing is now I'm doing some kind of low carb thing, and I finally reached a point in my life where I can make a magnificent dish of pasta. So it's kind of ironic, but the dish that is most important to me is the gabutzel that you guys want to have.
Really?
Well, because my grandmother used to make that, and when I was a youngster, and I'd be sitting at the table, and she would put this lamb's head on the table with these big black eyes. It was very traumatic, but it was something that had to be on the menu.
Yeah.
So
We are coming, just to go on record so I can corner you with this. We're bringing Nikki to a postcards episode at Enoteca Maria. We got to get the gabutzel. 3 of us have to have gabutzel together.
Yeah,
Because we've done, this will be our second gabutzel.
On
we went to
camera.
Villa Roma for
Yes,
gabutzel.
we did.
Wow.
Yeah.
We are gabutzel aficionados.
Yeah.
well, we do it very simply. It's just salt and pepper and garlic and red wine and rosemary, and we roast it. And that's it. I mean, first you have to boil it. You have to boil it for an hour. And then after that, just salt, pepper,
Do you
garlic.
put breadcrumbs on it?
We at one point in time we did, but it just became for me very complicated. My grandmother never did that. One of the ladies decided she wanted to do all this stuffing nonsense, so I just simplified it. And
I have to stop. Was there a gabutzel battle in the kitchen? You said I don't want breadcrumbs. She wanted breadcrumbs. My grandmother didn't do breadcrumbs.
No, it wasn't a battle. I just basically
Heated discussion,
stepped in and I simplified it. That's all.
You know what I love what you said, Joe. You're like this. It was really simple. It was just like salt, pepper, garlic. All I was
the litany of flavors.
A little rosemary, maybe some turmeric, maybe.
A little red wine, and you just roast it, and that's it. And it's a beautiful thing.
Do you sell out of it?
So we do. We sell really a lot of it, but so a lot of times somebody will order. I notice a lot of women order it, which is kind of.
That's a whole other episode.
And that's another episode. So, but these dishes were born out of poverty.
Right.
So these ladies, they wanted to feed their family. They had 5 kids, and they only had pennies, so they went to the matriarchal, the butcher, and they would, with pennies, they could get the feet, or they could get the organs, or they could get the head. Yeah. They turns out they're the best parts. Yeah. But back then, it was all they could afford.
Wow.
Can I talk about a memory?
Yeah.
Of cooking, all heads aside. Oh my God. Anyway, my mother used to make ricotta. So she would put 3 things plus the vinegar in the end. And I was in the kitchen, and she said, go get another slotted spoon. And so I did. She said, stand here with me. And the water was green. It wasn't pretty. And she would sit there and wait. And I'm like, now, Ma? No. I would wait, and all of a sudden, you would see it come up to the top. She would go, now, do it now. I go, do what? She said, pick it up. And the water would drain out. And here was this beautiful piece of ricotta that was fresh. Yeah. Right?
No,
and
it's the best.
And so I was always kind of like, meh, I can't do it. Just do it. She said, go on, just pick it up. But she taught me how to do that moment, how to be with her in that moment, in that pot. Yeah. And it was like, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. Beautiful. And then when she put it on a plate, she said, now, eat it. I said, with what? She said, with the toast, eat it. Put it on the toast. And don't forget it. I said, who could forget it? I waited here hours, I thought.
Right.
Is that the flavor that brings you back? Fresh ricotta? Is that if you had
with that moment with her, yes. Because she was such a great cook. She was really a great cook.
Are you a cook?
No.
No.
I prefer to be served.
You heard it from the mouth of the wolf.
And
That's
I'm
the
very-
Hollywood
listen,
legend talking,
I'm
folks.
extremely,
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm extremely grateful.
Yes, of course.
I mean, a lot of compliments.
Yeah, I can't
come
see
your
you being
way.
snobby about it, but you're honest. I
You,
think
you
that-
need both.
I mean,
You
all
do
I
need
do
both.
is
You need
sit
both.
there and say, "This is the most delicious thing yet."
Yeah, it's true.
You know,
It's a very
I give
important.
Great
That's right.
compliments.
That's
great
what. Hey,
compliments.
somebody's got to make a fuss.
Like if everybody cooked, he'd be out of business.
That's
This is
exactly
good.
right. Yeah.
This is very good.
My wife and I were just talking about a study that said something about kids who are confident and the parents celebrate them and they get healthier. And like my family's motto was make a fuss. So there's a great role for somebody who can make you feel really good about what you made. That's
That's right.
as important, if not
And
more.
my mother wanted me to appreciate it.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
And
It took
she's
the
right.
patience of a saint. She was there forever, and I kept going, "Ma, now?"
Yeah.
She said, "No." You know, she got annoyed at me asking because she had built up the patience to wait for that. I mean, I'm
It's all right. We'll bleep you. Don't worry.
yeah, bleep. For
Yeah,
that
bleep.
cheese to come up out of the water, and
Yeah.
she'd go, "Now." And I'd, oh my God.
But think about it,
Okay.
Icota. It's like it's a simple cheese, right? It's
Yeah.
but
But what a lesson.
the
What a
difference,
lesson.
yeah, the massive difference between something fresh made like that or something you get at the store,
Absolutely.
is in the patience, the willingness, the dedication, and it's
I'll
night
never
and day.
forget the taste of it, ever.
Yeah, see,
There's
That's-
nothing I've never tasted it again like that.
That's what this is all
on
about. Mm-hmm.
a piece of toast. It was like
Fresh ricotta on bread
Oh,
cannot be conquered. That's like the highest. My grandma used to love it. The fresh
Thank
ricotta
you.
on a piece of
That's
Italian
great.
bread.
So
that's
true.
But it's deep.
It's
These are
deep.
deep. There really is a deepness.
course
to
there
it.
is.
Like the
It's-
simplicity. What Gen Z kid today would understand a ricotta and fresh bread? It's
they're
so
out there.
removed.
They're out there.
From,
Somebody told me a long time ago, everything complicated was one simple.
Yes.
well, I mean, the reason I say that is
Yeah,
because
that's true.
patience.
you
It
needed
took
patience,
You
yeah.
needed time to do that.
Yes.
That
Right.
patience.
So now you got to run to again 5,000 extracurricular activities, and your kids got to go to volleyball and dance lessons, and your dad's working and mom's working. It is now. We've created a world where no one has time to make ricotta.
But that's what this whole project's about. In my mind, what you guys
Yes.
have all done here is, you know,
We've honored it.
yeah, and you're saying to people like, that's the difference between a grandmother and a nonna. You can both cook. You can both do it. A nonna is somebody who, in a crazy hectic world of phones and this and that, is going to say there's intrinsic value in this slow way, and it's about my family, and it's about providing, it's about their experience,
And learning. Really
and learning and passing and
Really learning.
internalizing. That's what a nonna is. And that's more important today than it's ever been. Somebody in your family to say, no. You're not going to be a Major League Soccer star. You don't have to go to soccer on Sunday. Come to my table, eat with me, be with me. You're going to get. I mean, I could look. I was not
And you
athletic, but
know-
you get more out of that than you do out of
Yeah.
Let me
soccer
just say
league.
this before we all leave, because my mother said to me once, "You are leaving this man. You're not marrying him." I said, "That's correct. Because you tell me that you're in love with somebody else after you spent 7 years with this man?" I said, "Yes, I don't want to get married." She said, "Brenda, let me tell you about life. It's built of changes. And in 5 years, you may be in love with him again.
Oh wow,
Don't do this.
wow.
Don't do this.
Wow.
Keep the wedding." I said, "I can't." She said, "Listen to me. Did you hear me? Life is a combination of changes. And in a very short amount of time, one you're not willing to count now, you may be in love with him again. Marry him." Oh my God. I was like so taken with that.
life.
What are you telling me?
Wisdom.
You know, everybody's gonna want the backstory. You just threw that out there. We can't say it, and we're gonna put that out as a teaser. They're gonna watch the whole episode, and they're gonna get nothing. But that's him.
I know, Diablito.
He's the boss. That's why you're in charge.
Diablito.
Yeah, fine.
I'm not
That's fine.
involved.
I do want
But
to hear.
isn't that a great
That's
piece
beautiful.
of advice? And it's so true. Life is just all these changes. I mean, what's divorce? What's a no? You know, unless it's a valuable no for your
Sure, yeah.
future.
There's people.
But I knew what she meant, but I couldn't do it.
She meant
Now
that
that I'm
it's a
older, I can do
marathon.
it.
It's not
I
a
can
race.
do a lot of things my mother said.
Amen.
But when you're young, it's like, no. Say something. I think it's wonderful that you do this.
Thank you.
And that it's open.
Thank
And
you.
that it's like a discussion that's not normally had. It's free.
That's
you
because we don't know what
and
we're
it's-
doing. That's the beauty of none of us have a degree in this. So here we learned.
But I honor you for doing
Thank you
this.
very
I
much.
think it's great.
Yeah,
I think
could not agree more.
I love being here.
Thank you.
I love
Thank you.
listening to you. You were so quiet the last time.
Thank you. It depends.
No, but it's been joyous to listen to you and to everybody. I think it's been a great happening. You make this happen.
You're the best.
You're
You're
the magician. And
Oh,
this
please.
Is the
Yeah,
magic.
no, but you should be honored. It
Thank
is
you.
lovely to do it. It's like family.
It is, yeah. But that's the Nonnas, right?
You create the
That's
safe
right.
space for
Yes,
this
that's right.
conversation.
Yeah.
And we create the safe space for the Nonnas to come in and take their time in this crazy, crazy busy world that everybody's
Whenever I have a problem,
just trying to. But I'd like to say to your audience, we would love to have some more Nonnas come in and represent the different regions of Italy. Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
We would
There's
love-
an open call for Nonnas.
We would love
Oh,
to have
how
a
nice! That's great.
let's have
Yes.
a game show, and you could put the three of them together, and we could say yours is the best. And then can you imagine that war?
The best-
Can you imagine the Nonna war?
That's a bloodbath. my friend.
Oh,
my God.
it'd be like wrestling.
Oh, my
Yeah, yeah.
I've been suppressing.
It's okay. Your meatball.
The idea is to suppress that kind of behavior.
Yes.
It's not
Wow.
That's like
Some of us are troublemakers.
Instigate.
Forget the world wrestling. I mean,
Exactly.
that's- Oh my
This
God.
is way, way worse. But no matter where you are, this is a great. First of all, great story of a great guy,
Yep.
a great restaurant, a great project, a great passion, a great film, great filmmakers, great actresses and actors. It's definitely something you want to be a part of. You don't have Netflix. What happens after Netflix? Does this come to?
It's on Netflix for 20 years. Get Netflix.
20 years. Get
Netflix,
Netflix.
yeah.
All right, there you go. Can you buy it in the Apple Store at some point after that? No.
Yeah, probably. I think it's 20 years exclusive, and it'll be on airplanes in September.
All right, airplanes. Is it that?
So there you go. So,
God.
so when you're hanging out in Newark, there you go. Watch
There you go.
Nonnas.
Watch
There you
it.
go.
And
That's-
it's #1 in the world.
Yes.
Number one in the world right now.
It's literally.
Today we
world.
filmed May 14th. Yesterday was International Nonnas Day, as per Vito Fasella, our friend, the borough
Why do you
president.
think that is?
Why is it
would
number
your,
one?
Yeah, right now in the world.
It's a common thread.
I mean, I think that's magic. I
is
think it's
magic.
magic.
It's a common thread that runs through everybody.
That's
And
right.
you don't have to be Italian. It's just these matriarchs they're the glue that holds culture together, no matter what culture it is.
So you now have non-Italian grandmothers cooking.
It just didn't
So you've
make,
expanded.
So what happened when we first opened, we had all these Italian ladies from different regions of Italy cooking, and it just was very organic. I noticed that a lot of people that were coming and filling the restaurants and celebrating these Italian ladies, they were from every culture. So it just didn't make sense only to feature Italian ladies. It's not about the food, it's about the ladies. So we just started featuring ladies from all over the world.
I got
So,
to ask one question. So they're interviewed, like they come like they're getting a job, right?
Well, you can tell. I've only made 2 errors in 18 years.
Errors?
Yeah,
Okay.
people who told me they could cook and they couldn't. And they
Okay.
were both from Nigeria. And the funny thing is, you can't get out of Nigeria without knowing how to cook. So I don't know how that happened. So yeah. So but generally everybody knows how to make one or two things. So
Well, by the way,
so they'll make 2 main courses and 1 appetizer, and that's all they're asked to do. So and everybody knows. So it's good.
It's working.
Wow, it's amazing.
Who does the shopping?
Well, I do a lot of the shopping, and Paola, my #1, she does a lot of the shopping, and it's a lot of balls in the air because the ingredients change every single day, and but they're all using the same animals. So the animals, the protein part of it is pretty stable, but the spices will change. So we've developed like a Nonna shelf that has everything on it.
The
you know?
candine.
Yeah.
Do they ever
No.
criticize you? Do they ever say, "Oh, you got the wrong scarolo"? You
Oh, I
forgot
mean,
this one."
constantly.
Oh, I could totally see.
Well, it's also about the brand. You could have. I had an interesting point. A Greek woman, she came to cook for us, and of course, she needed feta cheese, and she needed Greek olives, and so I went out and I got her some feta cheese, and she cooked, and she had a great time. Everybody had a great time, and at the end of the meal, she came to me and she said, "Is it okay if next time I pick up the feta cheese?" So there's different brands of products, and so we're gonna go down that road also. We're going to have Nonna approved products, or brand, Nonna the World products. Nonna approved, so they'll curate their product from their part of the world.
I would love to hear that conversation.
So that's
That's going to be a fun
That's
one.
the specifics.
That's
There's
coming.
universality
It's coming,
and
yeah.
specifics.
Amazing.
Well, it sounds like with all these different Nonnas from around the world, or whatever the word is, abuelas or
right, exactly.
grandmares,
Exactly.
that you have a sequel in the making. So at number 1, you got to follow up with something, right? So
Yes.
if you want the international version, I think it sounds like a perfect segue into the next story.
I'm in
about this
agreement
great
with
place. See, there you go. If you are out there and you are watching this wonderful movie, send a note to our new friends here, and let them know you'd like to see the sequel too, because I think it's number 1 is
my God.
not getting much better. So from all of us here at the Italian American Podcast, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Oh, thank you.
Born in Italy. If you want your life to be great, see that you're born an Italiano and your life will be great. See that you're born an Italiano.